Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. France's Leonardo Mosquea is the new EBU cruiserweight champ. He won the vacant title over CHEV Clarke. Tough fight this was. Very tough fight. The cards were kind of all over the place. You had, I think one guy had it 116, 112 to Mosquea. There was a 117, 113 to Clarke, which I thought was surprising. Then the other guy gave it 115, 112. I mean, look, this was a tough fight, and I pretty much of two halves. The first half clearly won by Mosquea, who won, if not the first, certainly one of the first 4 rounds, I thought. He had a fantastic opening round where Clarke came out, and bear in mind, Clarke is used to sort of smashing through people. And Mosquea is built like a tank. He's a big cruiser. And Clarke went after him. Mosquea stood his ground. They exchanged punches, mostly hooks. Mosquea clipped Clarke on the temple. Clarke became discombobulated. Down he goes. He actually sort of, he was clearly buzzed. Mosquea went after him. I think it was a right hand, put him over, finally over. So a 10-8, and you were thinking, is Clarke going to get caught cold, stopped here? Well, he was certainly caught cold. He weren't stopped, but it took him a few rounds to recover, to be honest. Mosquea was still kind of head hunting, looking for putting some real power into his punches, looking to knock Clarke out, basically, not allowing back into the fight. That's not to say Mosquea was crude. He wasn't. He did have some decent skills, decent technique, but I think he was loading up a little bit, and it took Clarke a few rounds to recover. Mosquea, by the way, 30 years of age, came in with 15 wins, 9 KOs, no draws, no defeats, as opposed to Clarke, who came in also undefeated in 10 fights with 7 KOs. Clarke, I mean, we saw him knock out Elisoro in 8 rounds. That was for the British cruiserweight title. He got rid of Tommy McCarthy, who'd seen much better days. Got rid of him in 4. He's beaten people like Vassal Ducar and David Jameson, Scottish fighter. He's got some good domestic wins. This was a jump up to cruiserweight, and at 34, not to cruiser, to EBU level cruiserweight. And to be honest with you, Clarke, maybe he got into the bad habit of thinking he could just walk through anyone. He's 34 now. He's big, strong lad, nearly 6 foot tall, 5'11", 6 foot. Mosquea, roughly the same height, maybe an inch shorter. But Mosquea really is a big cruiserweight. And I don't know whether Clarke, because Mosquea, French cruiserweights are not exactly to a penny, are they? He probably thought, this is for a vacant title. Mosquea hasn't beaten anyone. He spent his whole career in France. I think there were 1 or 2 occasions when he went abroad, but unknown to British fans. Clarke probably thought, I can just walk through this guy. No, you can't. And the first half of the fight, certainly the first 4 rounds, it was Mosquea. But then in the 5th, there was a slight turning of the tide, because Clarke began to move a lot more. He kind of got his legs back, and he started to jab a lot, move a lot. And he was busy. I mean, even during those early rounds when he was still in a bit of a fog or a funk, he was still able to do some decent work. It was also noticeable that Mosquea did land another big left hook. He loves that left hook, Mosquea, onto top of Clarke's head. And this time he took it. This time his brain wasn't scrambled. And Clarke gradually, from about the 5th round onwards, even though Mosquea was still having success, so was Clarke, and Clarke was moving a bit more. He was looking a bit more confidence, the wrong word. He just seemed to have his legs under him. He was a bit more aggressive. I think for those early rounds, he was like, well, I don't want to get clipped again. That's not to say he was entirely defensive. He wasn't, but he was boxing on the back foot. But nevertheless, as we've said before, you can box on the back foot. You can still be aggressive, and that's what Clarke was doing. He found that rhythm. And Mosquea suddenly wasn't firing quite as many punches and wasn't having quite as much success. He was still very, very dangerous. By the way, Mosquea is orthodox. Clarke was Clarke southpaw. But he wasn't really jumping over Clarke. He was still moving forward, but I don't know, maybe he'd used up a bit too much energy in the first half of the fight. This was a jump up in quality of opposition for Mosquea, definitely. Because if you look at his previous fights, I mean, there's really nothing on there that's particularly impressive. But I think he's done the 12. He did the 12 in some sort of EBU silver cruiserweight title thing over in France. Why are the EBU introducing silver titles? What a stupid thing to do. But anyway, at least it meant that Mosquea was able to do 12 rounds. So he had done the distance before. But I mean, Clarke's done 10 rounds a few times. Can't remember. I don't think he's ever done. I think he's been scheduled to do 12, but he hasn't ever done 12 before. But strangely enough, it was Clarke who, maybe not strangely enough, but Clarke was the one who finished stronger. He was the one who in the second half of the fight seemed to take over and seemed to have a bit more energy left. And that's, again, I repeat, Mosquea was still dangerous, still very dangerous. But this was a grueling fight, a tough fight. Clarke deserves a lot of credit for coming through that early crisis and getting back into the fight and pushing Mosquea to a split decision. This was a difficult fight to score. Some of those rounds, I mean, obviously you had the 10-8 in the first round, but there were a couple where it was like, well, more than a couple actually, where Clarke was the busier, but you just got the feeling Mosquea had the heavier hands. I didn't see Clarke really sting Mosquea. He bloodied his mouth. I mean, in the first round, Clarke had blood coming out of his mouth. He had a cut lip or whatever. But in the second half of the fight, Mosquea was bleeding from the mouth, but I didn't ever see him seriously buzzed. Now, as far as this defeat is concerned, I mean, Clarke is 34 now. He's had a very good career, on British title, but he really needed this. He really needed this belt to sort of push on, and I think to some extent, even though he showed a lot more boxing ability than perhaps people thought he had, he was found a little bit wanting in terms of. This was a new experience. Let's put it that way for him. He put it on the guy, but in this case, Mosquea, being the opponent, was just too big to just roll over, and soaked up the punishment and came back. And Clarke was suddenly thinking, I can't get involved in a firefight with this guy. This isn't the remnants of Tommy McCarthy. This isn't Ellis Zorro. This is a legitimate European level threat. So I don't know. I think Clarke at 34, I don't know whether he'll drop back down to British level. A rematch with Mosquea probably won't happen, although it would be interesting to see if Clarke could get his revenge. At 34, I'm not sure how many options are open for him. He looked European level, Clarke did, certainly, but world level, fringe maybe. As for Mosquea, yes, obviously European level, made that jump up in quality of opposition. Clarke by far his best opponent, and he proved himself, definitely. World level, again, maybe fringe world level. But if I was Mosquea, I'd be looking to defend that belt, go back to France, defend it a couple of times. He is the younger man. He's got a little bit more time than Clarke. He's 30, Mosquea. So maybe spend the next year making a couple of defences, get another couple of 12-rounders under your belt, and then try your luck at world level. For Clarke, difficult. For him to come back at 34 is difficult. Although he is a well-preserved 34. I mean, he's only had 11 fights, for Christ's sake. And this is the first time. I think this is the first time he's been 12 rounds. So there aren't that many miles on the clock. So I don't know. Be interesting. But I'd watch a rematch. This was a good fight. Very good fight. Very difficult to score. Didn't know who was going to win it. The judges seemed to take an age to collate the cards. And right up to when it was like one each, and then you were going to the third judge, I still didn't really have a clue who was going to win. Turns out it was Leonardo Mosquea of France. So well done to him. Commiserations to CHEV Clarke. Chevron Clarke. We'll probably see him back in an English ring, British ring next year. Mosquea, probably go back to France. But I would watch this again. I would watch this fight again. What did you think of it? What did you think of it? It was over in Monte Carlo, of course. We have to bear that in mind. You know, this was Leonardo Mosquea. It was close to home for him. But I didn't think. I thought the judge that voted for Clarke 117-130. That was a weird one. That was a weird one. But what did you think? Did you think Mosquea won? Do you think Clarke won? Let me know your opinions. Thanks as always for listening. I hope you did like the video, and if you did, please hit the like button if you could do that. That'd be a big help. And also, if you're new to the channel and you like what you hear, please subscribe. It takes a second. You're supporting the channel, and yeah, can't spread the love. Why not? Eh? Listen, thanks a lot for your time. Looking forward to reading your comments, and bye for now.